Chapter 10, Fire, Farming and the Wheel. Discovery of fire. So, how the early humans discovered fire. Fire gave out heat and light. So, early humans started fire to keep themselves warm. Fire also kept wild animals away. Early humans accidentally discovered that fire could be used to cook. So, fire gave out heat and light. And second use is they kept use discovery of fire kept wild animals away from them. And the third one is they accidentally discovered that using a fire we can cook a food. Perhaps a piece of animal's flesh fell into the fire and got cooked. Next, a piece of animal flesh which fell into the fire and it got cooked. On tasting it, the people found that it is cooked meat was easier to chew and tasted better than raw meat. Earlier, they were hunting the animals and eating a raw meat. Once they discovered this fire, accidentally a piece of flesh fell into the fire and it got cooked. So they started eating that flesh which was cooked and it was more tastier and it was easy to chew. So they felt better that eating a raw flesh or raw meat, it is better that they can cook that raw meat using a fire. Next, so this is how they discovered the fire. And see, this is how the piece of flesh which using a fire they are like roasting. They were cooking. So these are the weapons which they use for hunting the animals. So these are the 8 early humans. Next, we're not sure how early humans learned to make fire, but perhaps they discovered that when two stones struck against each other, spark flew. So they were not exactly known how the fire was discovered. They accidentally discovered a fire by rubbing those two stones stuck against each other. Then a spark of light came out. If this spark fell on dried leaves, they caught a fire. So when this spark fell on the dark leaf, when they started to rub two stones, that fell in the dark leaves. So it fell on the dried leaves. They could caught a fire. So obviously, when a spark fell into the dry leaves, it will catch a fire. Soon people began making a fire by rubbing two stones together. Was great discovery. Beginning of farming. How they started farming. As hunters and gatherers wandered from one place to another place. They were not staying in one place. They were like shifting from one place to place. So that is what they called hunters and gatherers. They noticed the plants were growing in wild. They knew that these plants gave seeds which could be eaten. They noticed that new plants grew where the seeds fell. So early humans may have tired dropping seeds on soft ground. So these seeds may have sprouted into new plants over a time. So this is how they discovered a pot which they use for cooking. Next, this was turning point in history. For the first time, people could grow their own food. Historians believe that farming first started in West Asia in an area called Fertile Crescent, which with the start of farming, people no longer needed to move around in search of food. So once they started farming, people only were growing the food. So they believed that no need to move around in searching of food. As a group of people started settling down in one place together, the first village came into being. So when they came to know that we can only grow the crops, and we can only grow the crops for the food. So they decided that no need to move around from place to place in search of food. So they settled in one place together, so that as recognized as the first village. As farming method improved over a time, people were able to grow more food than they needed. Once the farming got improved, the people were growing more food than which was needed to them. This extra spruce food needed to be stored. But the villages have processed food needed to be stored. Some people kept large herds of domestic animals. So These people kept large herds of domestic animals. So the first animal domesticated was probably dog. So what is the use of this domesticated animals? Is nothing but there are some domesticated animals such as sheep, cow, goat. They give milk, meat, and wool. So this is the reason why people kept a large herds of domestic animals. They exchange the milk, meat, wool from these animals for food and grown by the farmers. Next, invention of wheel. How they invented wheel. It was not easy for humans to move from place to place. They had to walk everywhere and also carry their loads. So some domestic animals like horse, donkey could carry some loads, but these animals could not carry very heavy things. So early people must have noticed the logs of wood floating in river. So they had a domestic animals like horse and donkeys to carry the loads. So but these animals were carrying only some loads, not the, so it was not having any strength to carry the heavy loads. So the early human must have noticed the logs of wood floating in river. So this helped early humans to travel around the river and also to carry the loads on rafts. People used cart or sleds which were push or pull, but these carts could move only in smooth ground. So the early people uses carts and sledges which were which they used for pushing and pulled. These carts could move only in smooth ground, not in the rough ground. So next they use fire, farming, and a wheel. The people live become more settled. So once they started using this fire, farming, and a wheel, the people lives became more settled. They were less dependent on nature than before. So what is the use of or what is the aim of discovering this wheel is nothing but the carts and sledges were just they were using for pushing and pulling. But this cart could move only in smooth ground, not in waters or not in any rough places or rough ground. So they discovered this wheel. So this is how the wheel. So they fitted this wheel into so this they fitted this wheel. Once they fitted this wheel in the carts and the sledges, so they were easy to pull. So this wheels also they can move in the rough grounds.